What's up, everybody? So we're back on the shop with another Shop Talk Tuesday, and in this episode we're going to go ahead and complete this build right here by attaching a beautiful piece of wood to it. So this is a block that I got from Oleg. I'm going to leave a link for his website in the description below. If you want some amazing stabilized wood, that's who you need to go through. It's absolutely awesome. He has the most solid blocks that I've ever used. Now, when it comes to this process, I'm going to try and break down the process as easily for y'all as possible. It's a little bit easier to do this style of a hidden tang when it comes to marrying the wood up to it than it is for a regular hidden tang knife. And I'll break that down as we go through it. Let's go ahead, go over to the workbench, talk about some other stuff, and get this thing going. So when it comes to this process right here, some of the easiest ways to get your handle profile figured out is to go ahead and take your blade profile, tang and all, take that, put it on your sketchbook, draw the outline of that whole entire guy, and then figure out your block size, where you're going to use it, what side of the block you want to use to be closer to the actual bolster, and then go ahead and draw the outline of that over the hidden tang area, and then go ahead and figure out your length of your handle. Now I know that because this is a integral bolster knife that my hand is going to be riding all the way up here, so I'm incorporating this area into the handle length. So because of that, whenever I take something like this profile with the handle length that I like, I'm going to take and just match that up to this little finger choil area right here where it dips down, and then I drew the outline of that handle, and then I modified it to be the type of handle that I wanted for this style of knife. I'm just going to have a little bit of contouring where your pinky sits. It's going to have a little palm swell, little area, kind of like a miniature Coke bottle handle without any super aggressive contouring. So it's going to be a nice subtle profile. It's going to flow really well into the handle. I also know that I'm going to leave the handle slightly proud of this area. So the handle itself is going to kind of bump out. It's going to be a little bit wider than this area, and it's going to bevel down into that bolster area. And you'll see that as we go along this process. But I know now that this is the handle profile that I want. So I'm just going to cut this out, put it on the block, go ahead and draw the outline of it. From that point forward, we know that we can go ahead and remove this big chunk of material here and just put it away. We won't cut out the profile of the handle until we go through, mark our center, drill our holes for the tang to go in. Once we get everything there lined up right, and we know our tang is going to sit in there right, and our front area where the bolster meets the actual wood is good, then we'll go ahead and cut the profile and kind of start doing the stuff from there. But for now, let's go ahead, cut off some excess, and start drilling our holes. So now that we have this cut down, we have the excess cut off there, I can show you one of the things that I marked out on here. So of course, I drew the whole entire outline, and then what I ended up doing was bringing that outline across the front here, and then I took my calipers and I scribed all the different little lines that I needed. So I knew where the tang was on here, so I went ahead and just scribed a line top and bottom here that were even with where that tang is going to be. And then I also marked a little center area. Now I put lines on both sides because I'm going to end up drilling down the center of that. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a 3/16 drill bit, because that's how wide the tang is, and drill holes in here. Basically we're going to come in, we're going to do a couple of holes at an angle, one down the center, and then we'll end up connecting them on the drill press. You're going to see that in the next shot here, but Basically all I did was I just marked where my tang was in relation to my drawing on here, and then marked my center. Now I'm going to drill down the center of that, just the width of the tang. I don't want to go past this top and bottom line that I have here, because if I do that, I risk making it too thin up here, because if y'all remember where the tang's at here, we've got this little ledge, and we need this area from this line up to be able to be filling this ledge right here. And then, like I said, it's going to come up just a hair over that and then kind of bevel its way down into the bolster there. So gotta make sure we leave enough material so we don't break out right there. So now I've got it in my little vise here, and what I did was I angled the wood in here so that my drill bit follows that first line. So as the drill bit comes down, it's parallel to this line here. And then what I'll do is I'll move it, angle it, and then make it to where this line is parallel with the drill bit. And then I'll do one more in the center and connect them. Just like that. Now what I did was I left it a little shy so that we could actually go in and file this hole open a little bit, so that way I can cut back to the size of the tang, and I'm not sitting here trying to, you know, make up for a hole that's too big. I would rather be able to barely come out with a little bit of file work and bring that hole to where it needs to be than go too big and accidentally screw something up. So now we're going to put it in the vise. We're going to start working on opening that hole a little bit. So now we're going to come in here and we're going to get this hole ready to be able to fully accept this tang. And we're just going to slowly remove material. I'm actually using a square file, just a little one, little needle file. And it's going to do a lot of the work for me. Basically, I've got round holes on either side here, so this is round and then the top is round. I want to square those off, and that's what I'm going to use this for. Now I'm going to switch to a flat file. So we're getting close here. One of the things that I ended up doing once I got this to where it was pretty close was I went in, I refined that tang just a little bit, tapered it just a little bit. We were a little wide in the center here, so I took that down, made it to where we had a nice little taper, and then I cleaned up the tang a little bit. So now we're about 1/8 of an inch from being fully seated. Now part of that is because there's a flare all the way around this lip here. So there's a flare from the tang down into the bolster area, so we don't have a sharp 90-degree angle. It's rounded a little bit down into that bolster area. So now I'm going to take and just open this up just a hair to accommodate that. So after a little bit of fine tuning, we were able to flare out this front piece a little bit and get it up on there, but we still have a little bit of a gap down here, and that's because we haven't squared off the front of this yet. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Remove the material that I need, and then it will finally fit in there exactly how I want it. So that's good. Now let's flare this just a little bit more. Okay, so we marked all the way around the front of that so that we could see exactly where that bolster is going to sit on here. So now I know that I'm going to have to grind down or remove all the material around that. Now, because I'm going to try and fit this to where this is just a little bit proud of that bolster area, I'm going to make sure that I don't remove any of that line. We're just going to grind down to just outside that, and then whenever I get done sanding or get to the sanding point, we'll then fine tune it in. But it's going to be just a little bit proud. As of right now, we're fitting nice and tight. So now we just need to remove material and get it ready to glue it up. So we left a little bit of that gap here and here for whenever we start fine tuning it. But as of right now, there's our handle, our pinky and ring finger go all the way to our swell right there. So that's going to fit good, or fit well. So that's looking good. Now basically what we need to do is we're going to end up profiling down the sides and go from there. So this is our beginning profile to our little Coke bottle handle. Now I'm going to take a lot of the bulk out of this because that's of course way too big. But basically what I did was I took the wheel on top of here and I ran it parallel to this ridge that's right here. So you have to kind of angle it across the belt. So we're angling it across the belt here and just working that wheel up into this line right here on both sides. And that's naturally going to give it that hook that we have right there that's going to go around our pinky right there. So basically now what we'll do is we'll go ahead, start pulling everything in, tapering it to where it's nice and round on the belly, and then we'll do the same thing to the spine. So I decided to go ahead and just put the entire handle profiling process in this section of the video. Everything that I did on the 2x72 with this 36 grit belt to profile this handle is all in here. So from the point where it was just a square to the point to where it is profiled, and then I can go on to the scallop belt, and then of course the hand sanding and things like that. All of the work that I did on the 2x72 is gonna be shown in this section. Now it might be boring for some people, but there are gonna be people that it will help because they might be struggling on a particular part of their handle profiling. And I decided, you know what? Let's go ahead, just show it all. Maybe it'll help one person, maybe it'll help 10 people. If it helps a single person, then it was absolutely worth putting it in here. Now, if it's not something that you really want to watch, go ahead, fast forward, skip past it. But for that one person or maybe more, hopefully this was helpful. So what I'm adjusting here is this area where it comes up to this peak right here, this swell. Again, I want my pinky and my ring finger to pull up into that, and then my middle finger and my index to rest on the flat part going towards the front. So we're just gonna keep filling it in our hand, making sure that that position is where you want it. And right now it really is. This little peak kind of splits these two fingers right here pretty well. We'll fine tune it when we start hand sanding, but right now we're pretty symmetrical through there. And all I'm doing is using the wheel and the flat parts going away from the wheel to be able to contour this, and just being real confident with how I'm moving it and filling it. And of course, a lot of this work kind of goes into like what you've been able to do to create a good habit with your handle material and making handles. Once you do this process a lot, you'll get more and more confident with your symmetry. I did all of this and there's no guidelines or anything like that. I can just see how I want it and how I want it to be centered, and then kind of go from there. The cool thing is we're going to end up with a real nice crisp line going across this back piece right there, which I think I'm going to really like. But now we've got the belly pretty much where we want it. We can go ahead and start working on the spine area. Now, if you like the fact that I showed the entire handle profiling process in this video, let me know in the comment section down below. Maybe I'll go ahead and do that in other videos where there are certain things that people don't tend to show the whole process of. And maybe I'll go ahead and put those into the videos and edit them in and try and show y'all the whole process with those particular builds. Let me know, comment section down below. So here is our handle profile. Go ahead and grab the blade real quick. So let's take that off. That right there so far. Now of course we still need to get a little bit of fine tuning done in this area. That is going to size down just a little bit. But as of right now, that is a full handle grip. We are good there. Nice and straight. It feels great in the hand. Like I said, we just got a little bit of fine tuning to size it down just a hair. And then that's going to step down into that blade real well. Yeah, I think that's going to look good. So now that we're at a point to where we can start fine tuning everything, getting it all nice and smooth, we're going to switch to a scallop belt. This is a 220 grit. I've got my frame here tilted at a 45-degree angle and the platen removed, so we have a nice slack area here. It's a lot easier to work here than it is to try and work at the top of the belt. So that's what I'm going to be doing. We're just going to start getting into this little area in here and really start fine-tuning that. Get everything smooth so that all we got to do is a little bit of hand sanding. But as of right now, it fits my hand amazingly. Now all we got to do is just get in there, clean everything up, and then go ahead, do a little bit of hand sanding, and get this thing attached. So now we're going to go through different grits. I'll start with 220 grit and work my way up to, I'm thinking probably 400, 600 grit on this. I think that should be fine. So we're going to go ahead and focus whenever we're hand sanding this. I'm not using a sponge or a rod or anything like that on this. I'm just going to be using my thumb to kind of get into some of these little areas here. And what we're trying to do is keep this edge sharp right here. We don't want to wash that out. So we're not sanding and going past that. we're sanding up to that ridge. So sanding up to it. Same thing with this ridge right here. We're going to blend it in just a little bit with the higher grits, but for right now, I want these two pieces to be sanded up to the ridge, up to the ridge, up to the ridge, up to the ridge, all the way around where that ridge is right there. We're not trying to wash it out, so we need to sand to it and pull back. Sand to it and pull back. Almost like we're sanding two different pieces of wood, and then we're going to end up meeting together in the end. And we don't want to sand in one spot too long. We want to keep it rotating. That way we can smooth out any lines from the 2x72. So now that we have everything sanded to where it needs to be, we can go ahead and buff it. I think it's going to turn out awesome. The cool part about doing this particular handle style is you do everything completely separate. So the handle is going to be completely done before we actually glue it up. Now we can go ahead and buff it. Right here, we're going to go ahead and take our two-part epoxy. This is just JB Weld 5-minute epoxy with some black dye in it. And we're going to take that and pour it into the handle. And then we're going to take our Tang, put it in there, move it around a little bit, get that epoxy nice and even inside that hole. And then we're going to clamp it and squeeze out the rest of the epoxy. And then we're going to go ahead and let it dry overnight. So right here we're going to go ahead and start sharpening the knife. We're going to just do two different belts with this. We're going to do a 600 grit belt, and then we're going to use my stropping belt with a green compound on it, and that's it. That's what's going to be our edge on this particular knife. I brought the edge down pretty thin, so we didn't really have to do much. All we had to do was just put a nice edge on it, get it polished, and call it good. I'd say it cuts. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. For my very first integral hidden Tang knife, I think we did pretty good. Now, when it boils down to it, anytime that I do a hidden Tang, and you probably saw this in the glue up, I'm still getting used to the whole hidden Tang process, especially with ones like this where you got to clamp it up and do all that stuff. I've got a little setup that I'm working on right now to make it a lot easier for me to clamp up my knives, but I still fumble through it a little bit. We were able to make sure everything was good on this, but I'm still getting used to that process. Now, with this particular knife, some things that I decided to think through with this build were the profiles, the materials, the textures, things like that. So we already talked about the blade and the decisions behind that. Now, I want to talk about why I picked this particular handle material and this profile. So for one, I knew that I wanted it to go from this grayish blue back to this like orangish fire color, because I wanted it to transition as a blade all the way in through the handle to the end. And I wanted it to be cohesive. So if I would have done a polished bevel on here, it wouldn't have been a cohesive blade. Would it have looked good? Yes, but it wouldn't have had this full transition going through the blade. It would have kind of interrupted that. So that was one of the reasons why I did this texture and this finish and things like that. Now, one of the other things that I decided to do was do a subtle Coke bottle handle that really worked with this bolster area. Now, one of my pet peeves, somebody's still shooting off fireworks. One of my pet peeves for this particular knife, like the style of it, the integral bolster knives, is whenever I watch people make their videos of them doing it, they square this piece off a lot. So it's really, really, really square. And I wanted to make sure that it was round. So that's why I forged it round, all the way around there. That was kind of my big thing, because I don't like for it to go square and then circle handle, or for them to go square, square handle, and then circle handle. It just puts weird lines, and I wanted everything to flow together real well. I wanted to have a nice arc across the back. I wanted this belly area to look natural, and I wanted it to fit your hand real naturally, and it does. That little area here, split your fingers so you grip real well. I have a little bit of a texture, can't really see it, but the same texture that I put on the blade there is on the spine right there. So whenever you're holding it, you feel like you got a good grip up here without having to have jimping or anything like that. So everything goes into it. You know, you think through how you want your bolster area, make it that way. You think through how you want your handle to be, and then you make it that way. Especially if you're drawing. Let's see if y'all can actually see it. Y'all seen it whenever I was doing the sanding, but this actual ridge does come throughout here. Comes back, and that's what was in the drawing. So if you're going to draw a handle, you're going to design a handle, try and stick to that design. Don't just go, that don't work, and do something else. Keep it how you designed it. And that's what I try to do here. I liked how it all turned out. It's super comfortable, and it looks beautiful. At least I think it does. Now, y'all got to tell me down below, do y'all think it turned out great? If it did, I want to know. If you would change something on it, tell me about it. Always interested to know those things. Now, for the next build that we're going to be working on, I haven't decided whether I'm going to make something larger, because we've been using a lot of the round stock and things like that. I've got a big coil of 5160. It's virgin steel. It has never been used. It is for like a machine, so it's thick. It's like an inch across. So I might do something with that. I don't know. Do y'all want me to make something big? Because I've made a bunch of small knives. Do y'all want me to make a bigger knife? You know, I think that I kind of want to do that. So we'll see what happens. And if I do that, it's going to be a big knife, and it's still going to be an integral knife. So I'm going to forge another integral bolstered knife, but maybe a big one, or do you want me to make another small one? I want to know. Let me know. Guys, that's the end of this video. Hopefully this was helpful for somebody. If it was, tell me about it. Guys, that's it. Make sure you give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe. Y'all have an amazing day. Y'all stay safe out there. Stay cool out there because it's super hot. I'll catch y'all next time.